Tonight on Straight Talk, the future of microchip manufacturing taking shape in Oregon.
It always has been and continues to be the home to Intel's research and development. It's where all of our new process technologies first come to life.
Thousands of engineers working around the clock on new chips that power technology we use every day.
They go into high volume production and then they go out into our global network of foundry and manufacturing locations.
It's complex, high stakes, and it's all happening right here in Hillsboro.
Intel is the only company that is headquartered and based in the United States that does their most advanced IP, their most advanced research and development, and manufacturing on U.S. soil.
We get an inside look at how Intel is advancing semiconductor technology and what this work means for Oregon and the rest of the country.
The stakes are high globally. The stakes are high for the country. The stakes are certainly high for Intel, and we definitely acknowledge that and have had to make a lot of tough decisions. And the stakes are high for Oregon.
That's all ahead on Straight Talk. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Stephanie Domerat. The U.S. is in a global race to develop the technology that powers modern life, and that starts with semiconductor chips. For years, many of the world's most advanced chips, the brains behind artificial intelligence, smartphones, cars, and defense systems, have been manufactured overseas. But right here in Hillsboro, Oregon, Intel is in the middle of a high-stakes push to bring more advanced chip making back to U.S. soil, strengthening the supply chain and supporting national security. Tonight, we sit down with a leader at Intel to talk about what's at stake for the country and for Oregon's economy. Courtney Martin, Director of Government and Public Affairs for Intel. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I want to jump in first because Intel is really a bellwether for Oregon's economy. It is such an important part of Oregon for people who don't even live here in the Portland metro or in Hillsboro. So what would Intel want Oregonians to know about how the company is doing right now after a few years of kind of hardship and struggle here at Intel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Stephanie. As you may know, and some of your viewers may know, we've been in Oregon for over 50 years now. And so obviously this site, this state is critically important to our business. It's been a tough couple of years, and we've had a lot of transition as relates to our workplace, as relates to how we develop technology, as relates to how we engage our customers, and we've had to make a lot of challenging decisions on how we address that, but we're making progress. And what I would leave with Oregonians, and I think is so important to understand, is the momentum we have and the critical importance of this site. It always has been and continues to be the home to Intel's research and development. It's where all of our new process technologies first come to life. They go into high volume production and then they go out into our global network of foundry and manufacturing locations. So Oregon is obviously critical in that network and continues to be so despite all of the changes that we've experienced.
Yeah, there's been a lot of news at Intel over the last couple of years. Do you sense that there's a shift in optimism or kind of a new direction as far as Intel in Oregon is concerned?
Yeah, I do think we're definitely starting to see some momentum. You have to crawl before you walk, before you run, and certainly our current CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, who joined us last year, is very much into ensuring that we have the fundamentals done, that we have the best process technology, that we're listening to our customers, and I think we've seen some examples on how that's coming to life. And maybe one example is earlier this year was CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, where we launched Panther Lake, which is built on 18A, which is the most advanced semiconductor process technology that is both developed and manufactured in the United States. And that product started here, it's in high volume production here and in Arizona, and it was a huge win for us to get that out in the world and having customers start experiencing that product.
Tell us why Hillsboro's campus and Hillsboro is so important to Intel across the globe, really. What happens here in day to day?
Yeah, so let's take that 18A example and build on that when we talk about the research and development that happens here in Oregon. So there's two features in that technology. RibbonFET and PowerVia. And I won't go into all the details on those because I don't know them all, but I know that they improve efficiency, they improve performance, and both of those, about, let's say, 10 years ago, were super ambitious research projects here, right in this building where we're sitting, right, as part of our R&D. And for years, those were nurtured, and we invested heavily in those until they then become part of our latest and greatest process technology. Now that that is up and running and in production, we're continuing to plow investment and work on 14A, which is the next process technology. So think about it almost like a conveyor belt. One comes out of R&D, comes into high volume production, goes in our global network. Yet here in Oregon, there's no rest, right? We're starting on the next one and what that advancement looks like. And so we've always done that research and development here in Oregon. There are thousands of engineers and PhDs continuing to work on that here, which is critical to our ability to continue to land customers on future process technology.
So this part of Oregon has been called the Silicon Forest, before Intel central to that. As we head into 2026, what is the biggest shift that Intel is focused on going forward?
Yeah. So first, to touch on the Silicon Forest, I think another important note about our footprint here and why it works and how it's been able to work over the decades is the hundreds of suppliers that are here as part of that ecosystem. You have tool manufacturers, you have material providers, you have service providers, and other states see that. They know that we have that ecosystem here, and they are aggressively trying to replicate and build up their own ecosystems, right? So that's why we continue to lean into the importance of that here in partnership with our external partners as well too. I think for 2026, what we're going to see is a continued laser focus on the 14A development, which is happening here, and our work to continue to listen to our customers, continue to build trust with them. Intel, for decades, we were an internal device manufacturer, where we designed products and manufactured them only for our own use. Now, years ago, Intel made a strategic decision that we are also going to be a foundry and manufacture products for other companies. So when people think of semiconductor companies, you may think of Apple or Nvidia or AMD. They're what we call fabless, where they design products, but those all get outsourced to a manufacturing company, mostly TSMC, which is in Asia and has some manufacturing capacity now in Arizona. But we decided years ago we need to be a foundry to get the volume we need to really continue to invest at the scale that's needed for an advanced fab, given the cost to build one of those.
And I think, which you mentioned, Apple, Google, most people don't realize that these tech companies don't actually make their own chips, right? And most of them send their designs overseas to Taiwan at one specific company to have these made. How is Intel becoming a major player in providing, the manufacturing for these chips to be a competitor with Taiwan?
Yep, it's a great question. And I think that's part of the focus that we've been focusing on for years, is that Intel is the only company that is headquartered and based in the United States that does their most advanced IP, their most advanced research and development, and manufacturing on US soil. And that's critical as we look at the geopolitics in the world, the supply chain and how diverse and dispersed that is around the world, that the US has their own domestic source as well of this advanced leading technology that, as you know, goes into communications and healthcare and national security and education and really all the things that drive modern life.
How is it competing, do you think, with these other companies right now? Like how will we turn, or how will Intel turn the corner to take that lead and be a major competitor?
Yeah. The thing that we are laser focused on right now as a company to take that lead is on our most advanced nodes, so the work happening here in Oregon on 14A, and closer partnership and engagement with our customers, really listening to their need. The foundry model is a service model, and ultimately we need our technology to be the one that they want to buy.
So the federal government invested heavily in Intel as part of rebuilding U.S. chip manufacturing and capacity. Last summer, Intel and the Trump administration announced a 10% stake at almost $9 billion in Intel stock. So what does that money support exactly here at Intel?
So we support the administration's goal of ensuring that there's a leading edge manufacturer of semiconductors in the United States. And what that means for Intel is that we have projects that we've invested in that ensure that we have that capacity and we have those advanced nodes. And so there was always a focus on Oregon, Arizona, New Mexico, and Ohio as part of our early CHIPS efforts and those grants, and that we have continued to invest in those facilities and the technology in those locations.
For taxpayers who wonder, why is the US government spending $9 billion of our taxpayer dollars? What would you say to them about why this is important?
I think it's critically important both for the US national security, for our economy, the sustainability of Intel long term, and the ability for this country to lead in semiconductor manufacturing and production. It's something that is critical to all components of our economy, our defense, our education, and the investments that Intel has made as a company in this country as well demonstrate how much that impacts communities, it impacts states, elevates our economic impact in the area. So I think there's both very proactive upside to the investment, as well as ensuring the U.S. is a major player in this global market.
Can you talk more about why it's important in your mind to national security that this be manufactured or that this develops here in the U.S.?
So there are 3 companies in the world that invest in and manufacture leading edge technology. 2 of those are outside of the United States. We've obviously seen a lot of dynamics over the past couple of years on national security and different geopolitical risk factors, and so ensuring that the U.S. has access to and has a company on domestic U.S. soil that long-term can both do the research and development and the manufacturing of the most advanced chips is critical to all aspects of this country's national security and economy.
How can Oregonians and Americans look ahead and see something and say, this means success, this means this is working at Intel? What can they look for or look to?
Yeah, well, I can say that, every year, even if you don't see here in Oregon a huge new building or 20 cranes putting something up, we are investing billions of dollars into this company, into the research and development, into the early phase of manufacturing. We're continuing to invest in the ecosystem around education and higher education, our university partners, K-12, recognizing the long-term needs of investing in education in the community. In terms of success, what we are laser focused on is customer engagement on our leading edge nodes. And most recently, our leadership spoke to the fact that as we continue to increase our capital investments, that will be indicative of the fact that we have customers and we have demand for these new products and continue to do those build outs.
So speaking to that, there was also an Nvidia partnership announced last year, also made a big investment in Intel. What does that partnership mean in real terms, and has Nvidia actually hired or brought Intel on to use their manufacturing for their products?
So our current Nvidia partnership from last fall is around product design, specifically for the data center and the client side, so the laptop products. Currently it is not a Foundry partnership, but we also see that as a signal from last fall to your question on what are some of the signals people will see that there's confidence in the work that we're doing, that there's confidence in the partnership and confidence that we can deliver in partnership with these customers.
So at this point there isn't the Nvidia, having Intel manufacture its chips just yet, but you hope that that's around the corner or coming ahead.
We are talking to many fabless semiconductor companies, and certainly that is the top priority for us. The current agreement we have with them is around product development.
What kind of conversations is Intel having with other leading technology companies about, attaining this Foundry goal?
So our CEO, I know that is his top priority in terms of the relationships he brings to the table, his long history with the semiconductor ecosystem, both as a CEO of another semiconductor company, and so much of the work that we're doing right now is building back that trust, showing we can hit milestones, we can get 18A out the door, this is a great product, why it's a great product, and then doing some of that co-development with customers as well, right? They'll come in and do test wafers. They'll use our design tools to see how does this meet their needs. And so that's the space we're in right now, laser focused on hitting those internal milestones, building trust, and introducing customers to what our products will be.
When you say customers, do you mean technology companies as part of the Foundry? Okay.
Yes.
So not customers that would see Intel as a personal computer maker and coming in, but more of these giant technology companies that you're working with.
Correct. When I say customers, I'm referencing fabless semiconductor companies that would use our Foundry.
A few years ago, our team here at KGW toured parts of Intel as the next generation lithography equipment was being designed. It was the kind of tool that was supposed to help with these advanced chips. How has that come along now 2 years later?
That's great. Yeah, we now have 2 of those tools installed, and they are making great progress on using those on the next process technology. So 14A is where those tools will really come into play and help us make smaller, more efficient products. But we're the only place in the whole world that has those tools installed right now. And I think it's just another testament to how special this place is and how advanced the work that we're doing here is and how important that is to the future of semiconductor leadership.
Our conversation continues next with a rare look inside the labs where engineers are pushing the limits of microchip technology. As Intel pushes to become a more competitive chip foundry, the team in Hillsboro is working on its next generation of manufacturing technology, known as 18A and 14A. In simple terms, these are new, more advanced ways to make the world's most powerful chips. And it all starts with this, a silicon wafer, a thin, round disk that's basically the canvas for building microchips. Inside Intel's Hillsboro operations, wafers are created 24/7, 365 days a year.
So inside the manufacturing facility we have here, you'll see that there's machines that are carrying the wafers through the manufacturing process flow. And the wafers will start as, a plain silicon wafer and go through thousands of steps as part of the manufacturing process that layer on different metals and different steps that create that unique process technology. While the wafers are in the manufacturing flow here on this campus, they'll go through about 27 miles of that overhead track, which we call AMHS. But it's basically a train track that runs those wafers all through the campus.
What is in here? Break this down for us.
Okay, so as you can see that there's patterning on here, there's different metal steps that have been laid on, and the future of process technology is really that things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So we talked earlier about the high-NA EUV tool. That's something that enables us to get even smaller and more precise patterns on wafers for that more advanced process technology.
And if you see this little chip, there's a lot happening in one of these tiny little chips, correct?
Correct. This is a full wafer. It'll go through the back end of the manufacturing where this wafer will be cut up into die, and then those go on a package, and that's ultimately what goes into a device.
But as Intel makes the high-stakes bet on manufacturing, there's another reality here at home. Its Oregon workforce down thousands in the last 2 years. Oregonians have seen painful mass layoffs in the last couple of years. 6,000 jobs have been cut. With these new investments, do you anticipate either that more people will be brought on or that those cuts have at least stopped?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had to make a lot of decisions over the past couple years as part of our really global efforts to become a leaner and more efficient company and kind of build the workforce model that we need for the future. I will say that I'm very thankful for our partners here in Oregon at the state. We worked with the city, with the county, with work systems on several efforts to provide additional services to folks that are impacted. They want to stay here. There's a robust ecosystem, and it's been great to see some of that outreach, and we're really thankful for that. I think we'll continue to see some changes in different business units as we continue to refine our model. But at this time, there's no major changes ahead of us. And so we're really just focused again on building that best technology and demonstrating our value proposition to our Foundry customers.
As Intel aims to lead in innovation and advanced manufacturing, how is the company attracting and retaining talent, including, homegrown Oregonians or people from the U.S.?
So, as I mentioned earlier, we've continued partnerships with local universities and colleges. Oregon State, Portland State are two of the top universities that we've historically recruited from. Portland Community College has, for decades, been an amazing source of talent on our technician side, and the partnerships we have with them have held strong and we continue to invest in. A lot of what we do internal, and I think about, why I come to work every day and tell this story and want to make sure people know it, is how important this company is. The stakes are high globally. The stakes are high for the country. The stakes are certainly high for Intel, and we definitely acknowledge that and have had to make a lot of tough decisions. And the stakes are high for Oregon. We're obviously a huge part of the economy here. We're by far continue to be the state's largest private employer, and we're appreciative of the work the state did over the years around the Oregon CHIPS program, and it's just important that we continue to recognize how competitive this environment is, how other states are trying to build their own semiconductor ecosystems, and really the gem that we have here, both at Intel in terms of our R&D and the broader ecosystem that's around us.
Semiconductor manufacturing and data infrastructure takes a lot of energy and water. What is Intel doing or keeping in mind as far as its environmental impact here in Oregon?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly this industry is resource intensive, and we've put a lot of thought into how we manage our resource use. And so for many years, we've had renewable energy goals and are one of the largest purchasers of renewable energy that is both meeting our needs and investing in that industry. And I would say for water, we have a goal around being net positive in our water usage. A lot of folks aren't as familiar with this one, but what that means is, we use so much water during the year, and almost 80% of that is returned back to local municipalities for reuse, and in an even cleaner condition than it came to us in the first place. And then for that 20% that's lost, primarily through evaporation, we invest in local community restoration projects. And there's 7 across the state of Oregon that work to improve water quality and volume in communities and watersheds all across the state to replenish back to that 100% level.
When did you start doing that?
Oh gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
That's a good question.
That's
interesting.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we probably set that goal 6 or 7 years ago.
As Intel continues to innovate and grow and expand, and especially with these new goals, do you anticipate energy use and water use being the same going forward, or do you have plans on how to adapt?
Managing our energy and water use is always top of mind as a large manufacturer, and is something that we are constantly looking at ways to reduce our impact, continue to reduce and recycle, and I'm sure that will be part of our efforts going forward.
Looking ahead 1 year or 2 years, given that Intel is so important to Oregon's economy, what can people look to know that Intel is on the right track?
Yeah, over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to be laser focused on continuing our work on process technology leadership. So 18A will continue to ramp, the demand for that will continue to grow. We're going to continue to invest in research and development on the next generation process technology right here in Oregon, in this building. The future of US-based advanced semiconductor research will continue to be going strong, and we'll be continuing to make those investments. And I think you'll continue to see signals that there is demand for the product that we're building and momentum around the work that we're doing to rebuild the new Intel.
Courtney, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
As Intel continues to invest in next-generation chips and high-tech manufacturing, the world will be watching to see how this Oregon campus helps lead the way. Thanks so much for joining us here on Straight Talk. We'll see you next week.